Autocar giant Ford has decided to shut down both its manufacturing plants in India.
We will stop vehicle assembly in Sanand and vehicle and engine manufacturing in Chennai.
Ford will stop assembling vehicles in Sanand, India by the fourth quarter of 2021.
At the end of 2021, Ford, the American auto giant, announced to quit the Indian market. The company had joined the list of other American brands including General Motors and Harley Davidson, which failed to penetrate the Indian market and left it for good. Jim Farley, the global CEO of Ford Motor Company, said that the company had lost over $2 billion in India over a decade and witnessed weak demand for its product. The announcement was in line with Farley's Ford Plus turnaround strategy that laid the foundation for significant investment in the electric vehicles while cutting costs in the underperforming market. This is why Ford shut down its factories in Brazil too. The market size of passenger vehicles in India was $32 billion in 2021 and is expected to reach around $55 billion by 2025. Maruti Suzuki, which is owned by Japanese automaker, rules the market with nearly 45% market share. Another foreign automaker, Hyundai, which entered the Indian market around the same time as Ford, has a market share of around 17%. By contrast, Ford, after 25 years of operation in India, had managed to win only 2% of the passenger vehicle market. Ford has a long history in India. The company initial stint started in 1926 but shut down its operation in 1953 due to severe import restriction. Ford was one of the first MNCs to enter India after the country announced the economic liberalization policy. The company re-entered the Indian market in 1995 in the form of Mahindra Ford India Limited, which was a 50-50 venture with Mahindra and Mahindra Limited. Ford later increased its stake in the joint venture and rebranded itself as Ford India Limited, which was a wholly owned subsidiary of Ford Motor Company. Ford is the second largest US-based automaker behind General Motors, which sold roughly 2.4 million vehicles globally. So what actually went wrong with Ford's strategy in India? Even a company with 120 years of expertise in automobile industry could not crack the Indian market in 25 years. If we compare the strategies of Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai to that of Ford, we can pin down Ford's problem in three main points. Number 1. Failure to understand the needs and preferences of Indian consumers. The fallback for Ford began in its early days when the company chose the 6th generation European Ford Escort as the first car when it re-entered the Indian market in 1995. Engineering and feature-wise, the Ford Escort was way ahead of its rivals. However, the Escort could not leave a mark among the Indian buyers. Indian consumer, being price-sensitive, favored small and fuel-efficient cars. With these insights in mind, Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai went on to introduce small hatchbacks such as Maruti 800 and Santro, which were the best-selling models. For Hyundai, Santro was a runaway success. By contrast, Ford had not any cars in this segment until 2010. To make up for the loss, the company introduced the Figo model in 2010, but by then it had become too late for the company. While Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai had many options in this segment to choose from, Ford had a huge gap. Maruti Suzuki had cars like Maruti 800 and Jane. Hyundai had cars like Santro and i10 models, which was made especially for the Indian market. These smaller cars from both brands were selling like a hotcake. Ford, on the other hand, lacked such models in the hatchback segment. There was a huge gap in Ford's offering. Ford, for instance, had either sedan models like Ford Icon and Ford Escort, crossovers like Ford Fusion, and SUV like Ford Endeavour. None of these models appealed to the Indian consumers. Unlike Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai, Ford had yet to introduce hatchback models that could challenge the success of Maruti 800, Jane, and Santro. From its initial days, Ford put more emphasis on the performance of the cars rather than the features, which were deemed more important by the Indian buyers. As a result, Ford cars appealed to only few buyers. Number 2. American culture prevailed over Indian culture in car designs. There is an old saying that, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do." This proverb simply emphasized the need to adapt to the local needs and preferences when doing business. Hyundai, the Korean car company, took it seriously, but Ford did not. In South Korea, the driving position is on the left side, so basic car control features like indicators knob are positioned on the left side and the wiper knob on the right side. By contrast, the driving position in India is on the right side. Hyundai knew that to crack the Indian market, it needs to adapt its car designs to the local driving habits, and so it did. All Hyundai cars, similar to Maruti Suzuki's, have an indicator knob on the right side and a wiper knob on the left side. Some of the early Ford car models would require the owner driver to go around the vehicles and open the left side door to unlock the boot. Unlike Hyundai, Ford failed to listen to its customers. Ford demanded change in the user's behavior. This also created problems in the acceptance of Ford cars. Number 3. Huge investment in production capacity. When Ford entered India, it established its first factory in Chennai with a production capacity of 200,000 cars. When Ford launched Figo in 2010, it went on to sell a record number of around 80,000 units. The company also experienced huge success with EcoSport models. Motivated by the success of these models, the company announced a new state-of-the-art facility in Sanand, Gujarat. The announcement was also made to capitalize the free trade agreement that India was discussing with Europe. India's free trade agreement with Europe would have made the export of Indian cars and engines to the European market more affordable. The company spent around $1 billion on Sanand facility with a production capacity of 240,000 cars. With 2 factories in operation, now Ford had an annualized production capacity of around 440,000 cars. As the Ford team envisioned, the FTA agreement with Europe failed to materialize and the company witnessed weaker demand for its models. In 2021, the company sold around 34,000 cars in India and exported around 40,000 cars to countries like South Africa and Brazil. Domestic sales and export accounted for a meager 17% of the total production capacity. The unused capacity nevertheless became a burden for the company. In addition to the above-mentioned problem, the company also struggled with after-sales service and high maintenance cost. As I said earlier, the Ford cars were best known for power and performance, as were evident in its Ford Icon advertisement rather than mileage and affordability. In a country where the majority of consumers wanted affordable cars with good mileage, Ford's brand image did not resonate well with the Indian buyers. The high maintenance cost of Ford cars further burdened the buyer's pocket. As a business enthusiast, there is so much we can learn from Ford's failure in India. No matter how big and successful your business is in one country, you cannot have the same recipe of success when doing business in another country. In order to crack the foreign market, you need to have a detailed knowledge of the tastes and preferences of local consumers. In this case, Ford failed to understand the need of Indian buyers for low-cost and fuel-efficient cars. Instead, it went to play the Indian market with American rules, which favored power and performance cars. Some of the early models were not engineered to address the habits of Indian driver owners. The failure to understand the buyer's preferences prevented Ford to gain a sizable market share. With Ford's failure, the other lesson we can learn is to maximize the use of resources we already have. The company invested $1 billion in the Sanand facility, which many believed was way ahead of the Indian standards. That investment came over the top of Chennai facility, which was already producing below its capacity. Sanand facility nevertheless became a burden for the company. Had Ford invested that money wisely in offering better features to compete with rivals, maybe the need to quit the Indian market could have been avoided. This much for today. If you think you learned something new from today's lesson, make sure to hit the like button, and for more content like this, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.